Hello everyone, welcome back to the AWS series 0 to 1, which is absolutely designed for the beginners. And if you haven't watched the lecture 1 and lecture 2 of this series, so you should definitely go and watch the lecture 1 and 2 first, because the terms that will be used in lecture 3 which will mostly revolve around the lecture 1 and lecture 2, which I have discussed earlier. But even if you have taken a top level view of the lecture 1 and lecture 2, definitely you will be able to understand the lecture 3. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to subscribe, because it encourages me, and this is absolutely free of cost. So this is the only support I want from all of you. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. And apart from that, if you haven't accessed the notes, you can just go and check out the link in the description. I have uploaded the notes in the drive, and from this lecture onward there will be a major update. The notes will be coming in the GitHub rather than coming into the Google Drive, because I feel that most of the folks who are now learning the cloud computing are already aware of the Git and GitHub, right? So you can definitely go and check out. At the last, I will just try to go through the notes, and I will let you know how can you access it by the GitHub, so it will be easy for you to navigate after the lecture. So yeah, before further ado, let's get started. And from today onwards, what we will be discussing, everything will be around the AWS services, everything will be around the AWS cloud, and we will be discussing the regions, availability zones, and the services offered by the AWS, what are edge location, what are availability zones, regions, and everything will be discussed in this lecture itself. So yeah, let's move forward. So cloud computing with AWS, lecture 3, and from today onwards we will be discussing the services offered by the AWS, right? So what we have learnt in lecture 2, yeah, this is the thing which I usually try to cover, what we have learnt in the previous lecture, so that you can just recall all the concepts which we have covered in the lecture 2. So we have already covered the total cost of ownership, TCO. Then we have taken a deep overview of capex versus opex. Then we have discussed the cloud architecture terminologies like the availability, scalability, elasticity, fault tolerance, and disaster recovery. Everything was discussed. Then we discussed the high availability, scalability, fault tolerance, then high durability, then what is cloud service provider, what is cloud platform, how is it different. We have discussed all these things in the previous lecture, so make sure you go and check out the lecture 2, and I will pin the link to the lecture 2 in the description. And then we have discussed the landscape of the CSPs, and the last was common cloud services, right? So these are all these concepts which we have already covered in the lecture 2. So yeah, what we are going to cover in lecture 3 then? So in today's lecture we are going to cover what is AWS, right? What are the benefits of using AWS, why we are learning AWS, right? Then what was the history, how it came into existence, right? And what were the major services which were launched in the early years when the AWS was launched. Then we will discuss the AWS component, what are the components offered by the AWS, and this component is majorly same for all the cloud providers. Then we will discuss the major offerings of the AWS, right? And in addition, there is some bonus in this particular slide. What is the bonus? I will let you know in the in the coming slide. So just stick with me. You will get to know a lot of things around the cloud native and the AWS, right? And then we will discuss the AWS global infrastructure, like what is availability zones, what are regions, what is edge location, and all that. Then we will discuss the regions, availability zones, edge location, and at the last I will come to the conclusion. And yeah, this is up for the lecture 2, right? So coming to the first part, what is AWS, right? So from the lecture 1 onwards, I have been telling you what is cloud, why cloud computing, why you should switch to cloud, and by the time I hope that you might have understood why we are using the cloud, what is the need to move and migrate to the cloud services, right? To bring some automation, right? To reduce the manual effort that we were earlier doing, right? So to reduce all these things, we are now going towards them, and to reduce the infrastructure cost. So to reduce all this, we are now migrating towards the cloud. Now we have talked about migrating to the cloud. So why only AWS, right? So in today's slide, we are looking into what is AWS. So AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud. There are majorly three services that we have discussed in the earlier lecture. It lies in the tier 1. Right, so the three major services are the GCP, Google Cloud Platform, then Microsoft Azure, and the AWS. Amongst the three, AWS tops the list. So Amazon's Web Services is a suite of the cloud computing services that runs on the same infrastructure. Right, it runs on the same infrastructure that Amazon uses for its e-commerce website. Right, you might have shopped with the Amazon e-commerce website. So Amazon e-commerce website also uses the same AWS services that it is currently offering. And AWS offer a broad set, and they have a plethora of services which are there to offer for your organization, like the compute, storage, database, network, analytics, application deployment. If you have something around the machine learning, definitely they have services for the machine learning, like recognition and all that. Then that help organization to move faster, lower the IT cost. IT cost includes the cost of the infrastructure, right? Includes the training of the IT personnel, and all that costs are included in the lower IT cost. Right, and scale your application. Definitely you have to scale your application. All these terminologies I have discussed in the lecture 1 and 2. So if you are not able to grasp all this concept as of now, so firstly you should go to lecture 1 and lecture 2. It's around 30 to 40 minutes. Definitely you can go with the 1.5x speed, and definitely you will be able to cover it. Cool. Moving to the next slide, what is next about the AWS? Then the AWS is a set of cloud computing services, right? They offer various type of cloud computing services, and they have the flexibility, availability, then scalability. They have enormous number of services to offer to you. Then it is elastic. Elastic means the dynamic scaling is known as elastic. We can get resources instantly. You only pay for what you use. It depends on the pay as per use model. So you only pay for the instances or the compute storage or the networking model that you are taking from the AWS for that particular moment of time. And I have already mentioned AWS charges you in an hourly manner, right? And AWS fully on demand. It is fully on demand. You are not going to get the resources if you haven't considered or asked for it from the AWS console, through the AWS console. Cool. There are some of the services offered by the AWS, like the EC2, RDS. We will be discussing all this concept, and today in today's lecture, we are just taking a high-level overview of what the services are and what are the major offerings of the AWS. Then we have benefits of the using AWS. What are the benefit? Why we are using only AWS? There are GCP, there is Azure. Why we are moving towards the AWS? So yeah, one obvious explanation could be because we are learning AWS, right? But the thing is, we are doing AWS because it has very good things to offer, like cost effective. It is very cost effective. You only pay for what you use. That is, it depends on the pay as per you go pricing, right? So you will pay for only what you use. So it has been named as pay as you go model. Right, then it is highly scalable. You can manually go and scale up and down the resources based on the demands, whether there is a increasing demand on a particular day or there is a decreasing demand on a particular day. It depends on that. So AWS is highly scalable, so you can easily add or remove resources as needed. This makes it ideal for businesses that are growing or that need experiences spikes in traffic, right? So this is very good for you to use. So please pardon me for this. Let me silent this. Cool. Right. Next, the reliable. So it is very reliable. What do you mean by reliability? So I have not discussed the term earlier, so let me discuss it now. So reliability means there will be zero to no downtime in the application, right? So there will be very low downtime for that application. So it makes it very reliable due to the enormous number of data centers which are available all over the world. Your data is being replicated to in the multiple data centers, so your data is safe. Right. So AWS has a proven track record of the reliability. This platform is backed by Amazon's vast infrastructure, data centers they have in different parts of the world, which ensure that your application are always up and running. then it is quite secure. They have some encryption services, they have some IAM, identity access management policies, then they have the access control, intrusion detection, and all these things are there in the AWS. They have implemented these services, so it is highly secure, right? So security is a very major concern nowadays, so AWS has ensured this, and they are constantly innovating, right? And it is quite flexible. What do I mean by flexibility is that you can decide, it's up to you what service suits for your organization. Amazon has kept it up to you. You decide what services you want to use for your organization. So it is quite flexible, right? Then it is easy to use. You just have to go to sign into the Amazon, console, AWS console, sorry, and then you can either make VM instances or any sort of services manually, or you can just use the CLI that we will be looking into the upcoming lectures. So it is quite easy to use. Then apart from that, I just want to tell you some more benefits, like since AWS is the oldest cloud service, so they have a very large community. So they have since they have a very large community, they have a very large number of people who are always ready to help you, and they have a customer support of 24/7. So definitely it will help you whenever you get stuck in any sort of problems and all that. Then coming to the history and origins, since we are learning the AWS, so we should be aware of the existence of the AWS, how did it came, and what were the earlier services, which were the service which was launched at first, and all these things we should be aware of. This is not going to help you, but it definitely this is something that you should definitely know while you are learning a particular cloud service, about the history and the origins of that XYZ cloud service, right? So in 2000, Amazon begins building its own internal cloud infrastructure. They have decided to build their own cloud infrastructure to support their e-commerce website. And at the same time, Amazon was launched, right? Amazon e-commerce website. Basically, at the time they only had a Amazon e-commerce website. Even before 2000, it was launched, right? And in 2003, there were two people, Chris Pinkham and Benjamin Black, present a paper on how Amazon's internal infrastructure can be sold as a service, right? Then in 2006, Amazon Simple Storage Service S3 was launched, which is the first AWS service which comes under the storage component of AWS, right? Then in 2007, it launched the Elastic Compute Storage, which comes under compute category, right? A virtual computing platform. Then in 2008, it released the Relation Database Services, a managed database service. Then in 2010, Simple Queue Service, a simple message queuing service, right? We will be looking into all the services in a very great detail. So then they launched Elastic Beanstalk, and 2014 they launched the Lambda, AWS Lambda, right? And in 2015 they launched Amazon Recognition Service, which is a machine learning based service offered by the AWS. And in 2022 they launched the Amazon SageMaker. This is again a machine learning service. So those who are machine learning enthusiastic, definitely they can go and explore the cloud services. Now coming to the AWS component, which is very crucial for you to know while you are going through any cloud services. It is not only specific to the components which we are going to discuss. This is not going to be specific only for the AWS. You can also implement this component in any cloud service provider. Mind my words, I am using the term cloud service provider. It is applicable for any cloud service provider which you are going to learn, right? The services offered in that particular category can be different for different cloud providers, but the basic component is going to be the same. So the first category of AWS component is compute. What do we mean by compute? So compute basically means it will give you some computational power, like the RAM or the some sort of the CPU or the cores and all that, right? So AWS offers a wide range of compute services, including the EC2, Elastic Cloud, right? Then it offers a Lambda, right? AWS Lambda service. Then it also offers Elastic Beanstalk. These are the compute services offered by the AWS. We will be discussing all the services in a great detail in the upcoming lecture. So yeah, bear with me. The lecture is going to be very interesting, right? These services allow you to scale your application up and down as per your need, and you pay for only what you use or the resources which you are consuming for a particular moment of time. Then there comes the storage. The second one is the storage. So storage, in the storage category, AWS offers S3 simple storage service. Then they have EBS, Elastic Block Store. Then they have EFS, and these sort of services are there in the storage category. These services allow you to store data in a secure and scalable way. Then they have a networking. Obviously, if you are using a particular service, you want to access them, or you want to build some virtual connection, definitely, right? So in that case, you are going to use the networking part. So it has a global network of data centers, right? Suppose you have created a virtual machine, in the cloud, and you want to access it, and that virtual machine has been created in the data center which is present in the Ohio, which is one of the data center present in the US, right? US region that we'll be discussing just in the coming slide, right? So now, since that virtual system is present in the US and you want to access them, how you are going to access them? So it's based on the networking part, right? So you want to access them, so it is based on the networking part. How is this possible? Since we have multiple data centers across the world, we are connected globally via the internet. See, yeah, as you can see, there are a wide range of services which are offered, right? Like the database. For database, we have Amazon DynamoDB. Then we have relational database service, Amazon RDS. Then Amazon Redshift. Then for the data analytics or something, we have Kinesis. Then Athena. Then QuickSight. Then for the storage, we have Amazon S3. We have EBS. We have EFS. Then for the containers, we have EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. Then we have Bucket. Then Amazon Glacier, and all the services are there in the storage. Then we have Route 53 for the DNS service. We will learn about the router table and all that which are needed for learning the DNS and the AWS Route 53. Then we have Amazon Virtual Private, right? So VPC. Then we have the Cloud Formation, and all those services will be discussed in a great detail in the upcoming lectures. Now we are going to discuss about the next three components. So the first three components were, the first was what? The first was the compute, right? The first was the compute. Then we have discussed about the storage. Then we have discussed about the networking, right? Then the next part, we have something called the databases as the fourth component. So the fourth component is databases. So in the database segment, AWS offers the RDS, DynamoDB, DB, and Redshift as their core services, right? And these services are again scalable. That's why we prefer this cloud services. Why? Because they are quite scalable and they are quite elastic. Then again, we have something called the application services. In the application services, we have application services including a API gateway, then SQS, simple queue service, then SNS, and all these services are there in the application services segment, right? Then coming to the management tool, once you have once you have created a virtual machine or an instance with the help of the compute and all that, you if you want to add or manage all those virtual machine, what you are going to do? So probably you are going to take the help of the management tool at that case, right? Or in case you want to provide some more infrastructure, at that case you are going to use the management tools like the CloudWatch, CloudFormation, Code Pipeline. These are all the tools which which are used widely when you are learning the DevOps, right? CI/CD pipeline, all those things are discussed in this particular thing. Moving forward, we have the these are the offerings of the AWS services in the different categories. So we have broad categories. The first one is the compute. In the compute, we have EC2, Lambda, Elastic Beanstalk, Lightsail, Fargate, and all those services. Then in the storage, we have S3, EBS, EFS, Glacier, DynamoDB. Then databases, we have DynamoDB, RDS, Neptune, Elastic Cache, then Redshift. Then in the networking, we have VPC, Route 53, CloudFront, Direct Connect. Then analytics, Athena, Redshift, QuickSight, and EMR. Then in machine learning, we we have SageMaker, Recognition, Lex Poly. Then in the containers we have EKS, ECS, Docker. Docker is again something that I will be covering or bring a lecture in the upcoming days or months probably. Then we have something on the serverless, because it is the era of the serverless. So I will try to bring some dedicated lecture on what is serverless nowadays, right? So serverless is in the serverless we have Lambda, step function, CloudWatch events and all that. Lastly we have management tool. In the management tool we have CloudFormation, code pipeline, then code deploy and all the services. So all the services have been given here. You can just take a look out on all the services and the symbols which are dedicated to each of the services. Then moving forward, the AWS services that you must try. Now the thing is, we are learning these services to get a overview of the AWS services, right? And these are the services which I will be telling you. I have personally used all of these services, and as a beginner you also use all of the services. They are beginner friendly, right? So the first one is Elastic Compute Cloud. So you might have heard of the VM instances or something like that. You might be having the Oracle or the VMware or something like that, right? So the same thing that you can just create on the cloud. So it is known as Elastic Cloud EC2 instance. This is one of my favorite cloud computing services, right? Now, or the AWS service, which not AWS service. I use the EC2 instance of every platform, be it GCP or Azure or anything. I used it for every platform. So EC2 instance is something that everyone should be aware of, because we are moving towards the containerized future deployment things. So definitely you should think for that. Then again we have simple storage service. This is again something like you store something on the cloud or the drive, cloud something, example the Google Drive and all that. So this is just a place where you can store your data. Then we have Amazon relational database service that is used that supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle and SQL Server again. Then we have Amazon simple notification service that allows you to decouple microservices and distributed system. This is again a term, microservices. Microservices means a large service is broken down into small parts or into chunks, right? So that they can be operated separately or individually. So this is one of the services which is again discussed. So this term should not be overwhelming to you, like the microservices, distributed system and all these things. Why? Because I will be covering all this lecture also all this concept in the upcoming slides or upcoming lecture, or probably I will take all these small terms like microservices, containers, Docker. Also I have recently launched a reel on the Docker. You should go and check out. This is a high level overview of what Docker exactly is, how it helps you out in the production and containerize your application. So yeah, I will be making reels or probably short videos on all these terms to make you understand. Now we have Amazon CloudFront, which is a content delivery network, right, that helps you deliver your web application or contents to all users over the web application with high performance, low latency and high availability. Cool. Now I have searched for the top 10 services which are widely used in the cloud industry. So let me ask you one thing. You are learning cloud services just for knowing the cloud services, or you just want to get a job in that? So probably most of the audiences will lie in the second one, right, to get a job. So if you want to get a job, you are probably in the cloud industry. So what are the major services which you should be aware of while learning all these services? The first one is Elastic Cloud Compute, then RDS, Relational Database Service, then Elastic Beanstalk, which comes under the compute category. Then we have AWS Lambda, which again comes in the compute category. Then we have Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Then we have Amazon Redshift. Then we have Amazon S3. Then we have Amazon Simple Notification Service. Then we have Amazon Elasticache. All these services are very crucial that you should be knowing. These are the services which are widely used and it is suggested by even the Google, right? So you should be aware of all these services. Now talking about AWS services that you must definitely know. The first one was the offerings of the AWS, right? All the major services, and the next slide was what are the major top 10 services used in the cloud industry, and this slide is about what are the services you must definitely know, right? Since there are lots of services, lots of offerings of the AWS, you can't learn each and every one of them. So what are the major ones that you should be knowing, and you should have made projects on? The first one is the IAM, Identity Access Management. Then we have EC2, EBS, Elastic Beanstalk. Then we have VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, RDS, S3, ECS, Lambda, CloudFront, CloudWatch, SES, SNS, SQS. Then DevOps tool like the Cloud Pipeline, Code Deploy, Code Build, Code Commit, and all these things. You should be very aware of all these terms. Sorry for all the noise that is coming from behind, since I'm recording this video at around 12:22. So yeah, it's the dog barking behind me. Cool. Now let's discuss about the AWS global infrastructure. AWS has lots of services, and since they have lots of services, they have lots of folks or the lots of people which are using the AWS services. So they have a very large infrastructure which is distributed all over the world, right? So we will discuss about the AWS global infrastructure first, then we will look into what is regions, what is edge location, what are availability zones, and all these things will be discussed, right? So as you can see, the green dot shows here the regions, and the red dot shows that these are the regions which are coming soon at that particular area. Now I'm not very geographical person, so I can't tell you about the specific location where the red dot is, right? So you have to go and search for it. Then so as you can see, we have 115 direct connect location. Then we have 31 launched region is with the multiple availability zones. Then we have 99 availability zones, right? 99 availability zones. Then we have 34 local zones, 29 wavelength zones, and all these things which are discussed in the AWS website itself, which are there. You can just go and check out the AWS site. All these things are written there. So I have taken all these things from the AWS site itself. Now there are 450 points of the presence, plus points of presence where AWS is quite active. AWS data center is quite active. Then AWS is distributed over 245 countries and territories served as of now. Moving forward, now we have discussed about the regions, we have discussed about the edge location, we have discussed about the availability zones. What are that? What the hell is region? What the hell is availability zones? What the hell is edge location? All these things will be discussed as of now. So yeah, let's discuss it one by one. What is region? So AWS regions are geographical location, right? Where AWS infrastructure is located. Obviously, suppose there is one of the data center which is there in Mumbai, right? I'm based in India, so I will be discussing about the data center which is there in Mumbai, which is based in India, right? So it is one of the data center, and suppose you just want a elastic or I can say EC2 instance, you want to build a virtual system. What will you do? You can just go in the AWS cloud management console and select the location as the Mumbai server, AP South 1, I believe, right? And then you can just go and build the ask for a EC2 instance from that particular data center, right? So since AWS has a particular data center at Mumbai, we can say it. We can call it a region, right? So a region consists of multiple availability zones. They have multiple availability zones. We will be discussing it just in the next slide, which are isolated location within a region, right? So they are isolated from each other, that are designed to be highly available and fault tolerant. I have discussed all these terms in a great detail in the lecture 2 and 1. Right, and the numbers of availability zones in a region vary. It can vary, and the cost can also vary, right? The cost of AWS services does vary from region to region, right? So in a nutshell, we can say that, see, this is the region. As you can see, the rectangle is the region, and in the region we have multiple availability zones, right? This is one zone. This is one zone. This is one zone, right? And the whole one is the region. And the default region, if you do not select any sort of region, it will set the US East and Virginia as the default location. And apart from that, these are the major location. You can just go through it and see the major location. The one which I was discussing about, Ohio, is the US East, right? So it is one of the location in the US. Then we have West, Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific, and all these things are there, right? Now, at a tip, I just want to tell you what is edge location, availability zones, and the regions. Right. So this is a tip you will get to know by the end of this, when you will get to know about the edge location, availability zones, and regions. Cool. The next one is availability zones. What are availability zones? So as you can see, the whole one is a region. The whole one is a region, and in region we have availability zones, different availability zones which are isolated from each other. What do I mean by isolation? So that means if there is any sort of problem at in any one of the availability zones in a particular region, it is not going to affect the other availability zones which is present in the same region. Let me repeat it. In a region, you have multiple availability zones and they are isolated from each other. Isolation means if any one of the availability zones goes down or there is some sort of problem, it is not going to affect the other two availability zones which are there in the same region. So this is an isolation. So AZ, I will call it availability zone, I will call it AZ. AZ provides isolation, right? So AWS AZs are isolated location within a region that are designed to be highly available and fault tolerant, and they are isolated from each other. As you can see in the second point, availability zones are physically isolated from each other and have independent infrastructure. As you can see, they are independent of each other, right? Then they are very high speed. Why? Because they are present in the same region. So they have very good speed. They have very low latency, very low downtime, right? And each region has at least two AZs. So it is must that each region will have at least two AZs, and as many as 6 AZs, right? At most it can have 6, and at least it can have 2, right? So the second one is the availability zones. So by the time it may be clear to you that availability zones is smaller than region. Why? Because AZs are coming under the regions, right? So it is in the increasing order. So by the time you can also understand that edge location might be something that is even smaller than AZ or availability zones, right? So yeah, you are guessing it correct, right? So let's discuss it in the next slide. What is edge location? So edge location are point of presence, or we call it POPs, that are located close to end users, right? They are located close to end users, or they are used to deliver AWS services with low latency and high availability. Why? Because they are made for that purpose only, so that there will be no downtime, right? So edge location have been created so that there should be no downtime in the application, right? This is made for that purpose only. So there is very low chance that your application will go down for a particular moment of time, right? Now there are services which uses the AWS edge location, like the Amazon CloudFront, which is a content delivery network, right? That uses edge location to deliver static and dynamic content to end users. Then we have Route 53, which is a DNS service again, right? Then we have Elastic Load Balancing, ELB, which is used to distribute the load amongst the different compute machine that you have created. We have discussed it again in the earlier lectures, right? Now it is up for this lecture 3, right? From the next lecture onward, we are going to take a look into hands-on how can you create an AWS free tier account, then how to get access to the AWS cloud management console, and everything will be hands-on. And from next lecture onwards, probably I will be covering the EC2 instance. What is EC2 instance, and we will completely deep dive into the measures of what EC2 instance is, right? Now I usually write all my learnings in the form of a blog, so you can just go and check out the hash node, and this is my username abhivos.hashnode.dev. and you can check out all the blogs. And if you haven't started writing blogs, you should create an account at Hashnode and start writing blog, because blogging is a great journey. And you can share your learnings in public, because I always promote share your learnings in public. You can just take a screenshot or any sort of, you can go and navigate to this particular website, and don't forget to follow me. I just want your support. Everything is provided to you for free. Then the major change which I was talking about is, now from now onwards all the nodes will be coming in the GitHub repo, right? So I will just after this slide I will go and navigate to the GitHub and I will show you the repo, right? And you can just go and navigate to that repo and download all the nodes. And this is the overview of the nodes, AWS series 0 to 1, and you can just go and start the repo and watch, click on the watch to see all the major changes. I will always be adding some major changes that will be coming in the lectures or any sort of extra material that I just want to provide you. Everything will be coming into this repo only. So make sure you fork this repo and keep it on a watch, and don't forget to follow me in the GitHub. Then it is up for the lecture 3. So I hope till lecture 3 I was able to make you understand each and every concept, and you are not creating any backlogs, and you are creating notes as I'm teaching you all the concepts. So make sure you revise all the concepts, because as we will move forward, the concepts are going to be complicated, and so if the basics will not be clear, you are not going to grasp the complex concept. So make sure you understand all the concept in a very good manner and try to make the notes. See you in the next lecture, and till then keep learning and happy coding.